Here we are today to look at one of the plumbing projects that I completed on this project. You'll notice, if you remember from the earlier video, we talked about some of the products and materials that we used in our RV. You remember I showed you this, which is the original city water filler that came out of it. And of course it was, get the sun out of it, it was broke right there. Of course that's where the hose used to go. Broke off, and so that had to be replaced. And what we replaced it with was something that you see. It's a little more modern now. Of course, has the door on it, has the flip up so the hose can go through, and then again you have the plug here, and then you have the actual filler here. Now, of course, this is all plastic, but what I liked about this one, some of these you can get where this part right here is this plastic as well. Of course, this is brass through and through. Picked this up off of eBay, reasonably cheap closeout. Makes it really nice. Of course, it's fully lockable. Got the key so you can lock it. So it's really a nice project, really nice product. One of the concerns about this project, the biggest concern and the scariest of number one is you've got to cut through the skin. You know, with the interior of the RV, with a lot of things you mess up you can fix. You mess up the skin and boy, you've got a mess on your hands. Of course, this just happened to have full detailed graphics all around it, which complicated the matter. So what I did was, since I don't have pictures of it in process, is I created a little diagram to show you some of the concerns and what went into doing to this, and that's what we're looking at here. So what you have here is, you have the existing hole. That was the hole that was drilled into the RV that the fixture I showed you just had. Another interesting thing, which is what this represents, this was a piece of plywood that was actually right behind the skin, and that's just a reinforcement that they put in at manufacturing. So when the screws went in from the fixture, it had something to go into. Now, one of the big considerations, you realize all you have is just this little hole here, and this is basically the template that comes with it that you've got to cut out of the skin. And so one of the first concerns is, what is in here? Of course, this particular RV has an aluminum superstructure on it. So of course your first concern is, okay, I'm going to take a tool, cut this fiberglass skin off. What do I do if, there just happens to be a big piece of framework that runs right down through here? Now I've cut over it, I've exposed it. Obviously this is not now going to fit because this frame's in the way. And then of course you can't cut the frame. So, you know, at that point you would have a real issue on your hands. How I solved it, of course, if you remember the makeup of this, you have a fiberglass skin, then you have beaded foam, and then you have Luan plywood on the inside. Of course, inside of that is the aluminum superstructure of the RV itself. So what I did is with the hole already here, of course, right on the other side of this is the bathroom. If you go right on this other side of this through the wall about a foot, the commode is sitting right on the other side of this. So you'll see in a later video from the inside, this sits directly behind the commode. So what I did is I went in here and I took a piece of wire and I began to dig. First I had to get in here and get this out. This was just glued in. It was not glued in very difficult. So I was able just to kind of pry around, break this out. Again, it was just plywood, and remove this. That took a little bit of time. Once I did that, I drew my template out on the side of the RV, and then I took a wire and began to poke and dig out foam. And right now I'd have to take a measurement and say, okay, you know, this is about 2.5 inches right here. Stick the wire in 2.5 inches, and I'm not hitting anything. And so I did that all the way around through this whole process and measured all of this to make sure that there was no of the framework inside where I needed to cut. Once I did that and I was pretty comfortable with that, I reached in there and dug out as much foam as I could, much of the beaded foam in this area as I could, because it was just a secondary to say, okay, is there anything in here at all? So at that point what I did was I took a drill, I drilled 4 starter holes in each corner. Then I used a Dremel tool. Now some could use, I have a larger, you know, metal cutting tool, but I like the Dremel tool. It was slower, it took more discs, but much more control. You can cut a real fine line down through here, and if you slip, you know, you're not slipping halfway, you know, you're not cutting halfway across the RV if you slip. And if you just take your time and you just work through this fiberglass. Now this particular model of fiberglass is not laminated. In other words, it's not a thin skin of fiberglass with masonite or Luan behind it. It's solid fiberglass, so that actually made it a little bit easier. So then all I did was I cut this out. Once I cut that out and pulled it out, cut all the foam and saw there was nothing there, big sigh, and I hadn't ruined the frame and or hadn't ruined the skin and or hadn't hit any frame. Of course, now what you see is what I saw then was the back side of the Luan of the inside, and of course right along through here was a whole lot of plumbing. The pecs to this all ran through here, so I could not cut the inside from in here just yet because I wasn't sure where I was at. So I went through, drilled 4 more holes through the inside of the wood so I could go inside and then look in the bathroom and kind of get an idea of what was what where, and then make sure I can miss what I could miss coming through here, because on the other side of this, imagining this being the interior Luan, there is 110, there is 12 volt, there is ducting right through here coming from, as you can see here, here's the furnace and the water heater. This is the bathroom, and then of course this part back here is the bedroom. There's a raceway on the inside here where everything that goes from front to back of the coach is at. So when you go to cut this interior piece out, you had to be real careful that you didn't get into any electrical. There's ducting, there's vent pipe. I mean, half the RV seems like it was right in that one spot. So I wanted to cut that from the inside so I could work around all of that stuff. Another thing I had to do here was I had to fabricate a new frame. Of course, remember, this is the old one. I fabricated a new frame, again, just out of plywood. Took it, cut it, come in here, trimmed out enough foam that I could then slip it up inside, and then I just re-glued it with construction glue just like they had. So what you can see here, the 4 screws now fasten into it solid. And so that was just simply cutting that out with a table saw and a jigsaw on just standard 1/4-inch plywood. Pretty straightforward. Of course, then once it was all installed and everything, came back, put it in with butyl rubber, and put butyl rubber around it before I put it in. And once the butyl rubber was in, I came back and caulked it all with silicone. So that's it from the outside, and then I'll show you some pictures shortly from the inside, where I had to do a lot of work in the bathroom, reframing work beyond this project, but it's what I had to do to get access. To get access to this on the inside was quite a chore, because there's the wall on the other side. They had a panel, maybe 6 inches by 6 inch panel, that allowed you access into this area behind that wall, and there was just no way that was going to work. There's no way you could do this kind of work inside that with that small of an area, so I had to do some fabrication there. So that's basically what I did to install a new city water filler in the RV. Again, turned out quite nice, if I do say so myself. Again, lockable. Of course, you can put this up, the hose can hang down. It's on a nice angle, so you don't have to have the elbow. A lot of them stick straight out and you need the elbow. Of course, that's designed for the hose just to stick straight out. You can lock it up, works great. Of course, you do this, remember, always with all things on the RV, your hinge goes to the rear, so so the wind won't rip it open. And that's it. In a few minutes, in the next series, we'll look at exactly what took place on the interior, right behind this area in the actual bathroom, using some of the tools we looked at in the earlier video with the pecs and everything. So until then, see you then.